Sometimes you just need someone who's maybe like a quarter mile ahead of you on the trail and just looks back at you and goes, hey, it's okay to go this way. Learning is when you get new information and then you change your behavior based on that new information. But people think that learning is just getting information. But if you get information and you don't change your behavior, you've actually learned nothing. If you listen to one podcast and it tells you to start eating 40 grams of protein at breakfast every day, and you start doing 40 grams of protein at breakfast the next day, and you keep that habit, that one episode was more valuable than 104 episodes that you didn't actually change your behavior from.
I see this all the time, younger coaches, younger trainers, and I was like this, and it took me a long time to kind of break out of it. It's like this, it's this ego high that you get when you do help someone, or when someone says, wow, you like, some people say, you saved my life. You'll get that kind of feedback. You'll see them get these like major, make this major progress in whatever metric of health or fitness, right? And it's this ego high. And then I know I did this. It was like, it was all about me, right? Like I'm saying I'm trying to help you, but really what I want is for you to get the results so I feel great about myself. And dude, I made that mistake.
I don't think enough coaches don't admit that. And I think that's probably true for a lot of coaches that probably aren't willing to be that, like, do that self-assessment. Because I've definitely been guilty of that too. And also too, I mean, no one wants to talk about this either, but it's true. It's like, your livelihood is based on your clients as well. Like, so there's this relationship of like, well, I want to make sure you're getting good results because then also you'll hopefully stay a client longer, right? It's like, it's not like you're trying to trap them into a thing. It's just like, oh, well, I want to make sure I'm doing the best possible job so that you want to stay a client. And there is that relationship. So it can create unnecessary stress in that relationship. There has to be like clear communication around, listen, I'm the coach. These are my responsibilities. You're the client. These are your responsibilities. And if one of us isn't upholding our end, then we should be able to have open communication and talk about it, right? As opposed to, dude, it's funny that you say that because like I totally relate to that because you're getting like that ego high. Do you feel like that was something that you've gotten better at over the years? Do you catch yourself falling into that now?
I relapse all the time. I'm much better about it now than I ever have been. But really, it took me crashing and burning a lot. I think that, like I mentioned, I would fall into a depression because I was giving so much, and like it was focused on the wrong things. I wasn't prioritizing what really mattered, and I was making it all about me. Knowing what I know about my childhood now, I was an only child. My parents weren't present. I was just screaming for attention. Like, look at me, I'm important. Look at me, I have value. I'm worthy, right? And that carried into my adulthood for some years. Until I kind of figured out like, wait, just because my circumstances of my childhood were what they were, it didn't mean that I wasn't lovable or had value or was important in any way. It just, I didn't feel that way at that time. But when I finally crashed and burned and had enough problems in life, I realized that, look, I don't need to make everything about me. I don't need to be standing on the platform and showing everybody like all these cool tricks that I can do, right? And
dude, that's really it. That's like, I can relate to that so much.
Yeah.
So much.
Yeah. So, and I think a lot of coaches, they're good people with big hearts, and they have this skill set based on like, probably the harder parts of life. They've developed these skills and abilities. And I think there's a lot of coaches who get into the work for that reason. And then sometimes they burn out of the field because they haven't done enough work on themselves to kind of stay in it and see what really matters.
I think also too is that there are probably equal amount of coaches who don't have that approach and are just like, hey, I look good in workout clothes, so I'm going to start. And then, but what happens, and I'm not trying to act like a victim here. I'm just saying this kind of what happens is like, those are the ones that will get the rocket boost, right? Those are the ones who will get the the million followers and start making all this money, and like they don't ever have to actually be in the trenches dealing with the day-to-day stuff that comes with helping humans. So then there's coaches like us, or maybe newer coaches, who they're like, I don't understand. I feel like I'm trying so hard to genuinely help people, and like it's taking, it's hard to build a living out of it, and it's stressful. And I think that's why people burn out too. And I mean, it took me until my adulthood to really dig into it too, my childhood. But like my childhood too, as I was one of three boys. I was the oldest. But I kind of went through all of my school years just kind of, I was just like someone in the background. I wasn't a popular kid. I didn't have a ton of friends. I didn't go on one date all through fucking school.
Wow.
There was a big chunk of my childhood, primarily a lot before I hit the age of 13, which, like you said before, like before you hit 13 is, my dad had a addiction issue when I was a kid. So there was a lot of periods of time where he wasn't around. And I had that internal wiring of, why is no one looking at me? So I felt I have to be overly exceptional at everything in order to just gain like a shred of acceptance and love. So like and then it made a lot of the things in my life unintentionally transactional. So if I was showing up as like the man of the girl's dreams, it was because I was just hoping that I was going to get that love in return. If I was the funniest guy in a group of friends, it was because I just needed to feel like people wanted me around. So it's probably got pros and cons to it, but there's a point where you get burnt out because you are pouring out so much. And the thing that the people don't talk about enough is, once you get the love and acceptance from the people that you want it from, it doesn't register.
No.
Because then you're like, oh, I got that, but now that's baseline. I need more.
Yeah, I have to do something bigger and better now.
Bigger and better, yeah. So like I have, I'm married to my beautiful wife, coolest, funniest, most, prettiest girl. We have two beautiful kids, and my inner child doesn't think I deserve that, but knows that they love me. So then on a day-to-day basis, I'm not like, how can I impress them? My internal wiring is, how can I get external appreciation from other coaches, clients, like whatever. And again, dude, it's like that internal wiring is crazy, that once you're aware of it, a lot of people just live in the dark on this stuff. They don't do this self-assessment. When you do the work and you learn this stuff, you're like, damn, man, like I really got to work through that.
Yeah, it's an addiction. That attention seeking, people pleasing behavior of other people. Yeah. It's really an addiction, and it's deeply unsatisfying because, like you said, you're going to keep going more and more. I mean, my whole military career was about that. I joined the Army right out of high school, and it was like, what can I do to show everyone else how special I am? So I would I would get into this special unit, and I would be like, to me, it was just I would get there thinking everyone was going to sing my praises, and some people would, but then it was just like unsatisfying. So it's like, okay, well, maybe if I go to this school that is like highly regarded, and graduated, then I will feel accomplished and special and loved. And it just, thing after thing after thing, that is always deeply unsatisfying, and it never hits the mark. And I just get higher and higher off of the praise, even when I do get the praise, so.
Well, the funny thing too is that it's because it's subconscious too. You're not pursuing it consciously thinking, oh, I'm doing this to get love and acceptance. Oh, you just feel like an internal pull towards it, right?
Completely unaware.
It's almost like unaware, and almost like what's the word I'm looking for? Involuntary. It's like almost like an involuntary response. Dude, I mean, look, even us, like we met and you invited me to do a group call with your people, and there was me and two other coaches on there. And even that, like in the moment, like you were saying that you were really like the things I'm saying, but like that all stemmed from that inner child of like, I'm on here with three other coaches. I have to make sure I have my A game on to gain some sort of acceptance here. Now, but again, like it doesn't always manifest negatively. Like that was a positive thing. Like I hopefully helped people when I shared stuff, but it was coming from that lack of confidence that I deserve to be on this call.
Yeah.
Right. So it leads to good performance in some areas, but you have to learn to fill your own cup and love yourself enough to realize that, hey, even if you showed up as just your authentic self and you didn't kill it, that you're still worthy of love and acceptance.
Yeah, and I think that's the hard part, is because, like you said, yeah, I've achieved a lot in my life from this like really like hurt child place.
Yeah.
You know, it's helped me with a lot of things, and that's why it's hard to like go get away from it, right? Like same thing, like you mentioned, people with other types of habits, like whether it be their eating habits or you know, drinking or you know, anything else. Like I kept doing it because I was getting something out of it. You know.
Yeah, and you might be getting comfort. Yeah, you have to figure out what you're seeking. Like you said, like you were seeking love and acceptance. I was seeking love and acceptance or attention. Some people are seeking stability. Some people are seeking security. Some people are seeking comfort. So once you can acknowledge, like, well, why do I keep running back to like these old eating habits? There's a feeling that's attached to them that you're not quite aware of. So when you were a kid and, you know, maybe things were erratic or stressful in the house, but hey, every Friday you guys had pizza night, and that was where like people seemed to be relaxed and be a little bit more chill. Then you're gonna develop this subconscious association with highly palatable foods that brings you a sense of comfort. And dude, like I do that. My whole life I didn't even realize that I had like a very emotional, comforting relationship with food. And it's taken me into my early 30s to go to really address that and start to realize that. And now, again, luckily, I wasn't someone who struggled with like binge eating or eating disorders. So, but I definitely have I think everyone has a little bit of a comfort relationship with food, right? Everyone has these certain foods or certain meals that makes them feel like comfortable and safe. It's learning how to not, tap that vein every time you're stressed out, right?
Yeah.
So if every time you're stressed out, whatever you do to auto-regulate that stress, that's usually attached to the feeling that you're chasing, and that's the thing you need to work on. So for me, a lot of times when I'm feeling high anxiety, my go-to is to try to do something like work-related, right? And it's because when I'm doing that, I feel like my hand is on the wheel, right? I feel like, okay, I'm in control. I don't know where this is going to lead, but I know I'm at least doing something that's like moving me forward. So my one thing is that I've learned over the years is that I have a high functioning anxious personality and my addiction is doing things like I have like workaholism, right? Like I get addicted to that. Which, by the way, is like one of the most dangerous addictions you can have, because it's literally the only addiction that people praise. Right? No one goes, oh my God, I admire you so much that you can drink so much alcohol, right? They go, no, I admire your work ethic. Oh, you put out so much content, or like you're able to do these things. So your addiction is also enabling your inner child's need for praise and attention. So that was probably with you too, is for me, is like, I want this praise and attention. Oh, when I'm working hard at things, people give me praise and attention. Now my identity is I have a good work ethic and I'm a hard worker, and I'm willing to allow happiness and joy to filter out of my life to just hold on to this identity.
Yeah.
And that was one thing that working through therapy that I got to too, is like, oh, you don't really derive a lot of joy from your life. And I was like, well, yeah, like that makes sense, because I'm so obsessed with getting the attention for being like the hardest worker that it's hard for me to just relax and just be like goofy and have joy in my life.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's like when it's coming from a negative place inside of you, which no one else can see, but it is what society and most people consider to be a positive thing. Fitness can be that way. I've worked with a lot of people over the years who had extreme unhealthy habits with fitness and exercise. And in most cases, that's a thing that people praise. It's like, oh, you're so fit, you're so committed to your habits and so many things, and you look great or whatever,
Yeah.
But it can be an extremely negative and unhealthy thing for some people.
Dude, I've literally seen like people who like would post a picture of themselves and they're really in shape online, right? And they'd get all these comments like, oh, hashtag goals, like, oh my God, you're amazing, can't believe you're so dedicated. I wish I had that level of motivation. And like this person had cheated on their spouse, barely sees their kids anymore, is not in a good financial situation, is totally a mental mess. But people are like, your goals. I want to be like you, right? Because you're fit. And it's the same thing with money, right? How many people out there are wildly financially successful, so people look up to them and they're ignoring the fact that they've burned all these bridges in their life, or I've gotten into that lately, because as a kid, like growing up as like a male, you just start looking up to you start to search for like that maybe that father figure, that like you're trying to look for, what am I supposed to be as a man? And most of the men in society who are built up, it's going to be people who are like very, very successful athletes, movie stars, businessmen. And you start to just look at, okay, I have to mimic their habits. What are their habits? What are their habits? And there's no parade for the guy who makes a modest income, provides for his family, invests smartly, lives a low key life, and there's no reward for that. There's no parade.
Yeah.
So as a kid, when you're searching for a father figure, you're not looking at Mr. Jones down the block, who's just a good father and an everyday stand-up guy. You're looking at trying to think of an example, but like there's no shortage of examples of like movie stars, musicians, or athletes who are wildly successful, but beat up their wife, or are on their or like don't see their kids. But it's like, that's okay as long as you achieve this big thing. So again, it's just it's fine tuning that hardwiring for guys like us who maybe didn't naturally have the confidence to say, I'm good with where I'm at, right? We're just always chasing that more.
Yeah.
And just so people listening to this, we're doing the work on ourselves. We're not just like this fucked up all the time. We're being honest.
Yeah, and I think that's what's really important, even as a coach, right? Like I think it's really important for people to there's a humanizing effect, and like you mentioned, like there are some coaches out there are going to, all different types of coaches that are going to help people, and they're going to say like, they're going to act like they do everything right, and they're going to put on this facade like they do all these, do what I do because this is like what's perfect or whatever, but they won't be honest about like their pain or the humanizing effect of it. And then like my favorite coaches, like coaches that coached me in sports as a kid, or even some of my leaders in the military, or coaches I've had over the years, they're just like honest, like, and they're like, look, I'm going to help. I've had all these problems, and I'm going to help you not to have those same problems. Maybe you'll just be a little better than me. And those are the ones I've connected with the most.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, 100%. And that's honestly what's gotten me to build solid relationships with a lot of my clients, is just being open with them, being like, hey, listen, like I think a lot of people are looking for, that this person who has all the answers, right? And sometimes you just need someone who's maybe like a quarter mile ahead of you on the trail and just looks back at you and goes, hey, it's okay to go this way.
Yeah.
Right? Like you don't necessarily need someone who's been to the mountaintop and come back down and is not pulling you up. It could be someone who's getting to the mountaintop with you, but maybe they're just like a quarter mile ahead of you, and they can tell you what to look out for next.
Yeah. Or someone who just has a talent, and like maybe I don't have the answers. There's a lot of times as a coach, I don't actually have the answer to your problem, but what I am really good at is most of the time, I'm a huge believer that you have a ton of wisdom within you. Right. And my talent is just to pull your own wisdom out, right? Like, what you need to do. I don't need to tell you a lot of the time. I don't need to tell you, especially in the realm of like fitness, nutrition, even mindset, right? Like most of the time, you're just not doing it. I need to pull it out of you and help you to be accountable to doing what you said you were going to do,
Yeah.
So I think that's a big part of it.
How many times do you hear that too, right? It's like, I know what to do, I'm just not doing it.
Yeah.
Like that's the phrase a lot of people come back to. And that's why information isn't the solution, right? It's not about getting more. And that's another thing that I've been working on too with myself, is to just stop overly consuming information.
Yeah.
Right? Because now it's so accessible, man. I used to like pride myself on how many podcasts I listened to a week and how many things I read a week. And, a piece of knowledge that was dropped on me, over the last few months that, again, I've been using with my clients, is that, learning is when you get new information and then you change your behavior based on that new information.
Right.
But people think that learning is just getting information. But if you get information and you don't change your behavior, you've actually learned nothing.
Right.
So
you wasted
if
your
you
time,
are,
basically.
yeah, or you're just entertaining yourself,
Yeah.
right? So if you listen to 2 nutrition podcasts a week for a year, you listen to 104 episodes of a nutrition podcast, but you've never actually changed your eating habits. You actually learn nothing.
Yeah.
Right. But if you listen to one podcast and it tells you to start eating 40 grams of protein at breakfast every day, and you start doing 40 grams of protein at breakfast the next day, and you keep that habit, that one episode was more valuable than 104 episodes that you didn't actually change your behavior from.
So correct.
So same thing with this.
Yeah.
When you're listening to us talk, if you're listening to us and you go, oh, I noticed that I tend to turn to wine or I turn to food when I'm stressed out, and then you start to acknowledge that and change your behavior around that, this one podcast was now more valuable to you, you learn more from, than if you listen to 100 other ones but you didn't change your behavior. So if you're someone, if you're looking for like a takeaway, one thing that I tell my clients to do is like a 3-question reroute. It's like a mindset reroute. So if you catch yourself in like a repeating in a pattern that you don't want, so like you get stressed out, so then you're driving to the liquor store to get a bottle of wine, or you're going to the drive-thru, just stop for a second, ask yourself, what am I feeling, right? Like, what is the emotion that I'm feeling right now? Allow yourself to feel that, though. Like don't just be like, oh, I'm pissed off, and just move on. It's like, no. I always tell clients, like, if you got a punch pillow, or you got to like blast some hard rock or some Slipknot or something, get that, and like let yourself feel that emotion. Then dig it. Then ask yourself, why am I feeling it? Because generally, like we talked about, it's not because it's not because your boss made a condescending comment. That's not why you're pissed off. You're pissed off because he made the condescending comment, and then that triggered your lack of self-worth. Mm-hmm. So okay, I know why. And then the third question is, what is one productive or positive thing I could do now to move me closer to how I want to feel?
Yes.
And if you do that, it can take 3 minutes to do that. But the answer is probably not going to be, oh, I should still go get that bottle of wine, or I should still go get that takeout, right? It's going to be, maybe I should go home, cook a meal, and see how I feel afterwards, or go for a walk. Maybe I should, I was going to go to the gym. I was going to skip the gym today. Maybe I'll go do that workout.